Ladies and gentlemen, strength isn't just about muscles, social standing, money, or trying to show power over others. True strength is a calm and steady force that cannot be easily moved or changed, a base built on self-control. Many men, despite being strong and having clear goals, often show their weaknesses without realizing it. Women are able to identify these weaknesses without needing to contemplate or scrutinize them. One can often sense a man's strength or weakness. Here are 9 signs of weakness that many men don't notice. A man who always seeks approval from others hasn't built a strong sense of self. He lacks a strong sense of self, allowing others' opinions to guide him. When a man relies on others to feel valuable and constantly looks for outside confirmation of his worth, he lacks inner strength. He mistakenly shows that he is very insecure, which is not a sign of strength. This indicates a lack of self-control. Women can quickly see when a man is insecure. It's not always clear through big actions or obvious words. Sometimes it's small things, like a man who frequently checks his phone for likes and comments as a way to feel positive about himself. Other times it shows in how he changes his views, behavior, and mannerisms just to impress others. He goes along with things instead of standing up for his beliefs. He nods when he should speak up and becomes whoever he thinks will make him popular. This isn't being a leader, it's giving in to what others think. A man who needs approval depends on others for his self-worth. He feels positive when people compliment him. When criticized, this man feels broken and constantly seeks approval to feel secure. He is emotionally fragile because his confidence depends on external factors that he can't control. The world won't always support him, and people won't always acknowledge his worth. Without this approval, he may feel lost and question his own value. The need for approval. Wanting approval can make someone less attractive. It can make a guy easy to control and lead him to give up his values, change his beliefs and goals just to fit in. Respect won't come to a man who lacks self-confidence. If a woman sees that he falls apart when he faces disapproval and seeks approval at the expense of being true to himself, she realizes he isn't someone she can depend on. True strength originates from within. A strong man doesn't need permission to be himself. He doesn't require constant validation and doesn't fall apart when others don't see his value. His confidence does not rely on applause. Despite facing criticism, he goes through life confidently, not bothered by changing views. This kind of strength earns him respect. A man who tries to escape pain also avoids personal growth. He chooses the easy way out because he is afraid of challenges, but by doing this he limits himself. The very thing that forges strength, difficulty, and discomfort is fear. In The Crucible, characters are shaped by their experiences, but many men avoid facing challenges, opting for easy solutions instead of building lasting strength. This avoidance shows up in different ways. For example, a man may avoid taking risks and choose to stay safe instead. He might stay in a job he doesn't like because looking for a better one feels too hard. He might also choose to remain in a relationship that brings him unhappiness, as leaving would require confronting unfamiliar emotions. He avoids tough conversations too. He avoids arguments and prefers to stay quiet rather than speak up for himself. This is not due to a lack of self-awareness, but rather a fear of the discomfort that comes with standing alone. He avoids discomfort by indulging in pleasures, endless entertainment, social media, video games, mindless scrolling, and other numbing behaviors. He picks short-term enjoyment instead of working hard. Instead of challenging himself physically, mentally, and emotionally, he chooses comfort, not realizing that each time he avoids difficulty, he becomes weaker. His mind and body weaken over time, and he loses the ability to handle tough situations because he has trained himself to avoid them instead of confronting them. Women can quickly tell when a man avoids pain. When he backs away from a challenge instead of facing it, It shows in how he carries himself, how unsure he looks, and his reluctance to take action. You cannot rely on a man who avoids hardship in tough situations. He won't be a good defender. You are not a leader if you can't stand strong when life gets tough. Strength comes from facing challenges. A man who avoids discomfort today will struggle with difficulties tomorrow. Discomfort isn't an enemy, it's a challenge that helps us grow and shows who is strong and who is weak. Many people try to avoid it, thinking they are making life easier for themselves, but they are not. Avoiding discomfort can show weakness. It makes people softer, weaker, and less ready for the difficulties that life will bring. Emotions rule a man who cannot control them. His emotions control him, causing him to react to situations instead of taking control. His emotions decide what he does and says, which affects his future. This isn't strength or control, it's chaos. Emotional weakness is one of the clearest indicators of an undisciplined mind. It appears in many ways: anger that flares uncontrollably, jealousy that poisons relationships, insecurity that demands constant reassurance, or anxiety that paralyzes decision-making. A man, feelings control us, causing instability, which in turn weakens us. A woman can quickly notice how he reacts to small problems, how he handles feedback, and how easily he gets upset by unexpected situations. He can't control himself or anything around him. Think about a man who gets frustrated over small things and has a quick, uncertain temper. People don't fear him, they pity him. His anger shows weakness, not strength. His feelings control him, and the people around him have to be very careful because they never know when he might lose his temper. A man like this is neither trusted nor admired. He is seen as a risk to himself and those around him. Then there's a man who feels very insecure. He takes criticism too personally, always needs others to validate him, and often doubts himself. His feelings control how he sees his own value, making him easy to influence. If someone compliments him, he feels strong. If someone criticizes him, he falls apart. A man like this can't be a leader or stay strong because his confidence relies on the approval of others. Jealousy is a sign of mental weakness. A man who is overly possessive, unreasonably suspicious, and always tries to control his partner is not strong. He is just hiding his fear behind a facade of power. Women see this as a sign of fear, not as protection. A strong man isn't afraid of losing because he knows his value. In contrast, a weak man desperately tries to hold on to what he fears losing. Then there are those who let sadness and disappointment defeat them when things go wrong. They give up easily, feeling sorry for themselves and waiting for help from others. They see challenges as personal attacks instead of things to face head-on. Life will always have struggles, but a man who lets his emotions control him won't be able to handle them. Also, a man who can't manage his feelings is unpredictable. If someone can't control themselves, how can we trust them to handle important responsibilities like leading or keeping others safe? Women tend to stay away from guys who can't control their emotions, not because they don't like emotions, but because they recognize the risks that come with it. Lack of emotional control. Why it destroys respect. A man who is afraid of rejection is also afraid to fully participate in life. He hesitates and doubts himself, which makes his fear stronger. This fear isn't only about dating, it affects all aspects of life. It comes from a deep fear of failing, being embarrassed, or facing the unknown. A man with this fear goes through life carefully, never really putting himself out there or taking risks, and as a result, he stays small and limited. Rejection is a way to sort out those who are brave from those who hold back. However, many people struggle with the idea of rejection. They think too much, worry, and come up with excuses to avoid situations where they might hear no. Fear of rejection prevents them from approaching the woman they like. They don't apply for jobs they want because they think they aren't talented enough. They refrain from expressing their ideas or pursuing their objectives due to their fear of rejection. This fear can be very limiting because it stops a person from taking action. Fear of rejection prevents a man from taking action. He will stick to what he knows and tell himself that it's better to avoid failing than to try. However, what he doesn't see is that avoiding rejection doesn't protect him, it just makes him go unnoticed. The world doesn't give rewards to those who wait, and it doesn't notice those who don't make an effort. Saying no exposes a man to rejection, yet he can be certain that he won't accomplish anything truly valuable. Women can easily recognize this fear in how he moves, how unsure he seems, and how he asks for permission before doing anything. A man who is too afraid to express his goals and risks failing lacks confidence. Indeed, strong, unwavering confidence attracts people. A woman does not admire a man who is overly cautious or waits for the right time. She admires a man who takes action even when he is scared and is willing to face rejection because he knows it doesn't define who he is. Rejection isn't the end, it's feedback. It's a chance to improve and grow. Each rejection teaches us something and helps us become stronger and more confident. But if someone is afraid of rejection, they won't learn or discover their true potential because they won't try. The biggest danger of this fear is that it leads to a life focused on avoiding things. A guy who is afraid of rejection does not only stay away from women, he also avoids challenges, confrontations, ambition, and, in the end, his own personal growth. He is waiting for life to give him chances instead of making them happen himself. He doesn't see that failure isn't the biggest problem. Fear is. If he doesn't deal with his fear, he will end up regretting not trying new things instead of truly living. A man who tries too hard to impress others shows one thing. Above everything else, he doesn't feel good enough on his own. He believes that he must demonstrate and promote his inherent worth. In trying to gain admiration, he reveals this feeling. Fear of rejection, how it holds you back. His deepest insecurity is the fear that without effort, without spectacle, or without performance, he is unworthy of respect or attention. This kind of man exhausts himself seeking approval. He boasts about his accomplishments, exaggerates his stories, and carefully curates his image to appear more successful, interesting, or dominant than he truly is. He drops hints about his wealth, speaks loudly about his connections, or flaunts status symbols, cars, watches, expensive clothes, not because they genuinely fulfill him, but because he believes they will manufacture admiration. He craves validation, and in his craving he becomes desperate, and desperation is never attractive. Women sense this immediately. It is in his tone, his mannerisms, and his eagerness to prove something that does not need proving. A truly confident man does not advertise his worth. His presence alone is enough. His strength, his intelligence, and his value, these things are evident without needing to be broadcasted. But the man who tries too hard to impress does not trust that who he is will be enough, so he compensates, and compensation is always a sign of deficiency. Some men show their arrogance by talking over others, name-dropping, and behaving as if their accomplishments make them better than everyone else. However, this attitude often hides their insecurities. A man who always has to brag about how outstanding he is does this because he worries others won't notice his greatness on their own. If he was truly confident, he wouldn't need to prove his worth. It would show on its own. Similarly, some people try to win others over by being overly agreeable and pleasing, always saying the right thing and never disagreeing. They confuse being polite with being liked, thinking that if they are kind enough, people will appreciate them. However, their efforts to win favor often leave them unremarkable. Women do not respect a man who doesn't have his own opinions or is too scared to disagree. Some men try to please others by changing who they are. Then there are those who try to impress with their money. They buy expensive gifts and pay for everything, thinking that their value comes from how much money they have. But having money without good character means nothing. A man who uses money to attract others is like someone who makes a house without a strong foundation. It might look good, but it will fall apart when faced with problems. Women can tell when a man relies on his belongings to hide his lack of true confidence and depth. A man who tries too hard to please others does not believe in his own worth. He looks for validation from others, which makes him weaker. True confidence is calm. It doesn't need praise from others, fancy displays, or admiration. It simply exists unaffected. A person becomes truly impressive when they stop trying to impress others. A man without a goal is like a ship without a guide, lost and aimless. Trying too hard to impress others can show that you feel desperate for their approval. He moves through life without direction, just responding to things instead of taking charge. He has a routine of waking up, going to work, and distracting himself, but inside he feels unfulfilled. Without a sense of purpose, he struggles to truly be present in his life. A man's goal isn't just about making money or seeking success. It's about having a strong motivation that keeps him going, even when life gets tough. It's what gets him out of bed each morning and inspires him to put in his effort. He's dedicated and attentive. A goal helps a person find direction in life. Without it, he can feel lost and may just wait for things to happen instead of taking charge and making his own decisions. He may rely on others to guide him. If a man doesn't establish his own goals, values, and sense of self, he will end up following a road created by someone else. Women often notice when a man lacks direction in life. Without a clear goal, he can be unpredictable, changing his mind often and getting easily distracted. He relies on others for support instead of finding his own path. If a woman feels that a man is depending on her for his purpose rather than having his own, she may lose respect for him. A man who lacks a task often fills the emptiness temporarily. It provides a sense of enjoyment and pleasure. He eliminates distractions to focus on enjoyment. He becomes a consumer instead of a creator. He wastes time mindlessly looking through social media, playing video games for hours, drinking, or doing activities that don't really matter. Give short-term help, but no long-term satisfaction. He is always looking for a way to escape because dealing with the emptiness in his life is too hard. But no matter how much he tries to avoid it, the truth is that he feels stuck without a purpose. Having a mission is not about going after a big, unrealistic dream. It's about moving forward with purpose. It means understanding what you believe in, what you're creating, and what you're ready to give up for it. A person with a mission doesn't need others' approval. Their actions convey their intentions. They stay focused and clear on their path, easily ignoring distractions or setbacks. They know their destination, and this confidence is strong. People tend to forget a man who lacks a purpose. He doesn't stand out or earn respect, and he doesn't inspire others. His energy is low because he lacks motivation. He is just getting by, not really living. People may like him or tolerate him, but they won't admire him. Admiration goes to those who are active, working hard, and pursuing their goals without giving up. A man who changes his beliefs to gain support doesn't really stand for anything. He behaves akin to a leaf swaying in the wind, adapting to whatever direction garners the most acceptance. The path with the least resistance, he has the best chance of getting in. Without a clear mission, men can lose respect. Fear of others' opinions rather than strong principles can lead someone to lose their integrity. This loss of values often begins with small compromises. A man laughs at a joke that he does not find amusing in order to conform to the prevailing culture. to avoid arguments. He agrees with opinions he doesn't believe in and makes choices he disagrees with out of fear of judgment. Over time, these little sacrifices add up, and he starts to lose his sense of self. He begins to lose focus on his true identity and the persona he strives to embody. Eventually, he isn't sure what he really believes in. Women notice this right away. They can tell when a man changes his beliefs, changes how he acts, or hides his true feelings just to gain approval. A man who can't stick to his beliefs is not trustworthy because his values depend on who he wants to impress at the time. This man's weakness stems not from a lack of intelligence, but from his fear of disapproval. A man who worries about being disliked will never earn respect. Being agreeable at the expense of being true to oneself is not real strength. A man who changes his ideas based on who he's talking to lacks a solid foundation. He tells one person what they want to hear and then tells someone else the opposite just to fit in. However, by doing this, he loses trust and credibility. People might put up with him, but they won't truly respect him. Respect is given to those who have the bravery to be themselves. This need for acceptance goes beyond just words. It influences his whole life. He might choose a job he doesn't enjoy to make his family happy. He might stay in a draining relationship because he fears letting someone down. He might also act in ways he doesn't agree with just to fit in. As a result, his life no longer truly belongs to him. Instead, others control it. A man who gives up his values becomes easy to control. He might agree when he should disagree, tolerate things he should refuse, and accept what he should oppose. Instead of shaping his own future, he lets others make decisions for him, which weakens him. True strength isn't about being liked by everyone. It's about sticking to your beliefs, even when it's hard or unpopular. A man who stands by his values may not always be liked, but he will gain respect, and admiration lasts longer than approval. A man who shuns responsibility is someone who does not want to face what life requires of him. He prefers to take the easy route, choosing comfort over hard work. He avoids being burdened, held accountable, or relied upon by others. By avoiding responsibility, he makes himself weaker, less capable, and less respected, ultimately diminishing his worth as a person. Responsibility is the foundation of power. It molds our personality and sets disciplined individuals apart from others. Compromising values, the cost of seeking approval, distinguishing between what's trustworthy and what's not, the leaders from the people. A responsible man accepts his duties without complaining. He just gets on with them. In contrast, a man who avoids responsibility views it as a burden to escape rather than something to take control of. This dodging shows up in different ways, like a man who blames others for his problems. He always makes excuses and blames others. He never takes responsibility, saying it's because of his parenting, the economy, or unfortunate luck. Other individuals, he won't look in the mirror and see that his life is a result of his own decisions. This man will never grow because growing means taking responsibility, and taking duty takes guts. This is similar to someone who puts things off and doesn't act when they should. Instead, they delay making decisions. He avoids making commitments and lets life pass him by, waiting for the right moment that never arrives. He keeps saying he will take control tomorrow, next week, or next year, but time moves on and nothing gets better. He stays stuck because he won't accept that his future depends on him. This avoidance shows in how he neglects his health, finances, and relationships, thinking someone else will take care of it. He only addresses issues when they become unavoidable. He doesn't take action beforehand, plan ahead, or stick to a routine. As a result, he constantly reacts to external events and never assumes responsibility for his own future. A man who avoids responsibility in a relationship is easy to see through. He doesn't take charge when it's necessary, make tough choices, or protect and provide for his partner. Instead, he expects others to deal with his problems rather than working to fix them. He shies away from arguments, commitments, and anything that would require him to take action. Reliable women notice right away when a man lacks confidence. They observe his hesitation when making decisions and his unfulfilled promises. Women never trust a man who lacks reliability. Life doesn't reward those who avoid responsibility. It punishes them. A man who tries to avoid his problems might feel good at first, but over time he will become weaker, more dependent, and regretful. The challenges of life don't go away just because he ignores them. They only get worse. They will feel overwhelmed when they eventually face the situation. A guy who does not respect himself has given up on him. He has let go of his dignity, value, and personal standards. He lets others decide how he should be treated, putting up with things he shouldn't, and accepting things he should reject. He faces challenges and accepts less than he deserves. He lacks control over his life and lets others dictate what happens. To fit in and please others, he avoids pain, which makes him weaker in ways he wants to escape. Responsibility. How it affects trust. Many people don't understand that self-respect is essential for building strength. It quietly influences how a person acts, speaks, and interacts with others. A man with self-respect doesn't have to prove his worth. He carries himself in a way that shows it. He won't accept disrespect, not out of arrogance, but because he knows he's valuable. In contrast, a man without self-respect will let others treat him poorly. He will accept mistreatment because he doesn't believe he deserves any better. A man who lacks self-respect often shows it by letting others use him. He gives too much without setting limits, hoping that his kindness will make people love or accept him. He fears that if he stands up for himself, he will lose those around him. Instead of being truly kind, he puts others first because he is afraid of rejection, of being alone, or of expressing his own needs. Because of this fear, he shows people that he doesn't value himself, so they don't either. Women can see this right away. A man without self-respect tries too hard to please others and settles for less than he deserves. He doesn't set limits for himself or expect much from himself or those around him. This results in him accepting disrespect and ignoring others, which is not appealing. His lack of confidence shows in his slouched posture, unsure voice, and passive energy. He asks for permission to speak, hesitates to act, and often apologizes for being present. He makes self-deprecating jokes and goes along with teasing instead of standing up for himself. He thinks that being easygoing and avoiding conflict will make him likable, but it actually makes him forgettable. Others will not take a man who lacks self-respect seriously. A man who doesn't respect himself often neglects his body, mind, and dreams. He may ignore his health, becoming weak and careless. He fills his time with meaningless activities instead of practicing discipline. He sets goals but never follows through, always making excuses and delaying his progress. He becomes content with less than he deserves. He doesn't achieve more in his relationships, career, or personal growth because he doesn't think he can do better. A man without self-respect goes through life without asking for anything better. He doesn't expect much and doesn't try to achieve more. People put up with him, but he isn't truly appreciated. He is there, but he's not really respected. The world does not help those who do not value themselves, it overlooks them. Losing self-respect. The main source of weakness. A man's strength isn't about how strong he is, how much money he has, or his social standing. It's really about how much respect he has for himself and then how much respect he earns from others. A man who wants approval often avoids feeling uncomfortable, struggles to manage his feelings, is afraid of being rejected, tries very hard to please others, does not have a clear purpose, and may give up his principles. A man who avoids responsibility and doesn't value himself has given up his power. He is not in control of his life. Instead, he is driven by his fears, insecurities, and desire for approval from others. Women see weakness not to take advantage of it, but because they are naturally attracted to strength. True strength isn't about being dominant or aggressive. It's about discipline, endurance, and having steady self-confidence. Respect a man who is quietly confident, stands by his beliefs, takes responsibility for his life, and doesn't need others' approval. He works on himself to earn respect, and he earns admiration without asking for it. Weakness is not a final answer. Becoming a man who commands respect is a permanent state. It is a choice, just as power is a choice. Every moment gives us a chance to improve, take control, and ask more from ourselves. A person who faces their weaknesses instead of letting them define who they are will naturally earn the respect they seek. The world respects those who are confident, act with intention, and stay true to themselves, not those who seek approval.